Hello there. When you're younger, you don't necessarily have the critical thought processes one has now. And frankly, almost anything that was marketed towards my age group had my immediate interest. I know I certainly asked my parents to take me to films they probably really dreaded watching. That's phenomenon still happening today, what with the poor parents having to sit through 3 Alvin and the Chipmunk pictures. A moment of silence for them. Anyway, so here are the list of films I saw on the big screen when they were released, because for some reason I wanted to see them. Here are my top most embarrassing childhood films. Again, I apologize to my parents. Flubber. There was a time when you couldn't turn a corner without seeing Robin Williams in a family film, and I enjoyed his stints in the likes of Aladdin, Jumanji, and Hook. So I certainly had interest in watching this remake of The Absent-Minded Professor. I really enjoyed it when I watched it, but over time I've come to realize it as a lazy bit of slapstick that John Hughes was continually spewing out during this era. The computer-generated effects on Flubber is fairly impressive by 1997 standards, but the script throws a lot of family film cliches at the table and hoping the audience will laugh. Well, my 8-year-old self certainly did, but at 23 years old my reaction is simply, at least you had Good Will Hunting play next door, Robin. Home Alone 3. Hey look, another mediocre John Hughes comedy. Admittedly, I actually prefer this over Home Alone 2 Lost in New York, which simply rehashed the first one in the Big Apple with a cloying and smarmy performance by Macaulay Culkin. And I enjoyed this at the time because Alex Linz was a likable enough twerp, and I thought the slapstick was funny. As time has gone by, the jokes just aren't as funny, and the premise is pretty tired. Home Alone 3 is merely a forgettable entry in a franchise that should have stuck with one film when the concept was still fresh and interesting. Quest for Camelot. Yes, my parents contributed to the meager gross of this Warner Brothers animated feature, and needless to say, it is a fairly lame attempt to do Disney at a time when a lot of studios tried to unsuccessfully copy that formula. Reading up on the production troubles, it could have been something special if the executives hadn't interfered. Though it bombing did lead to WB leaving Brad Bird to his own devices on the Iron Giant. So there was kind of a silver lining there. I was into medieval times and King Arthur at the time, so this was a fun little version. However, it never stuck with me like other animated features did in my younger years. As an adult, it's pretty unremarkable, with dull songs, uninteresting leads, unfunny comic relief, and a slapped-together story. However, this was such a troublesome production, and sadly, the final product reflects this. Doug's first movie. I honestly don't understand the hate the Disney version of Doug has received over the years. I thought it was the enjoyable continuation of the Nickelodeon show, and had no problems with the character changes. Having enjoyed watching it on one Saturday morning, I certainly had interest in seeing his first big-screen adventure. And I enjoyed experiencing Doug's adventures at the local multiplex. However, when I revisited it a number of years back, I realized what a waste of money it was seeing something that could have been watched at home for free. This was originally going to be direct-to-video, and it's very obvious. There's nothing cinematic about the animation, and while he's a solid character in television episodes, Doug is not interesting enough to sustain a full-length feature. Big Fat Liar. When I originally saw this Frankie Muniz comedy, I thought it was a brilliant satire on Hollywood. A number of years later, I saw it again and realized, no, boy, it's actually a stupid attempt to satirize Hollywood. It's not the least bit funny, and try as he might, I just didn't find Frankie Muniz all that likable or charming. The whole thing feels like a rejected Nickelodeon script, which it actually might have been, considering one of the writers was responsible for a lot of the sitcoms dating back to Kenan and Kel, and Amanda Bynes is in it. And poor Paul Giamatti, I don't even know what he's doing here. Thank goodness he went on to make American Splendor and Sideways shortly afterwards to make us remember he can act. If you want a better comedic take on the Hollywood culture, just watch Entourage. Of course, do you want to know the saddest thing? I actually have a copy of the novelization somewhere. Any takers? Thought so. It Takes Two. I don't know why I saw this thing when it came out. Don't even ask me. But I did. Maybe it was the allure of Steven Gutenberg. I could count on more than one hand the amount of Gutenberg flicks I saw when I was younger. which is why I'm further perplexed we don't see him much anymore. And after watching her performance in Martha Marcy, Me Marlene, I think they should have pulled a Parent Trap and cast Elizabeth Olsen as both twins. I was just as shocked as you were when I found out there was an Olsen that could act, and they've been hiding her from us for years. It Takes Two was pretty much a lame duck retread of The Parent Trap, and Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen were no Hayley Mills. I know this sounds especially crazy to say now, but they're not even Lindsay Lohan. My Favorite Martian. There was a time in my life when you just needed to slap the Disney logo at the front of something, and I would be interested in watching it. Case in point is My Favorite Martian, which, having recently revisited it, is an awful and horribly unfunny comedy filled with embarrassing performances and bad special effects. If you want to suck the acting talent out of Jeff Daniels, just put him in a Disney flick, I guess. Meanwhile, Christopher Lloyd is trying his best to overact Jim Carrey, and his suit is the strangest idea for a comedic sidekick in a family film. Or any film for that matter. There's just one really bad joke after another, and why a castle at the front of a movie is no guarantee it will be good. Mr. Magoo. Another entry in the category of bad Disney movie I saw in original release. This was sadly my introduction to Leslie Nielsen. The original UPA cartoons are funny, but this live-action rendition has none of that humor. Instead, it brings in a strange spy plot, and poor Nielsen is given no direction to work with. And now that I'm familiar with animation history, I notice how odd it is that the Walt Disney Company produced a live-action film of Mr. Magoo. Why? Because Uncle Walt actually accused the creators of Mr. Magoo of being communists during the McCarthy era. Guess Michael Eisner forgot about that piece of history when buying the rights. Or maybe this was an intentional ploy to ruin the legacy of the UPA cartoons. Nah, even the Disney Company is not that evil. And my personal, most embarrassing childhood film is Snow Day. This is a case where even my young, like just about anything mind, did not care for this. And as an adult, I like it even less. The script is not the least bit funny, with one-dimensional characters in the center of it. The premise has a bit of comedic potential, but I honestly don't care about the children's plight to keep Snow Day alive, which isn't helped by how annoying the performances are. Not to mention there's that boring romance plot stuck in the middle. I also think this is the reason Chevy Chase lost his prominence until Community came along. Snow Day isn't brought up a lot in those rare discussions about Nickelodeon movies' output, because it's frankly a dull and unfunny mess that was a sad excuse for family entertainment. And I want to apologize to my parents for wanting to see it way back in the winter of 2000. I am very, very sorry.